Mhm. Welcome to our eighth episode of this series, Communicating Towards the Answer. Hi, Garrick. Hi, Cam. Hi, everyone here. Well, I'm gonna give a quick introduction until you initiate your microphone. Yeah, okay, now we are here. Thank you so much for this theme. It's always how it is working out in our one mind, and hasn't been said much anyway in sessions or in many teachings about is there any value in routine? Because at some point we do know that routine can go into both ways. We do know that as a human evolutionary being, we are coming from routine out of the necessity to survive. And that survival um, consciousness, let's say, made it necessary to set up a routine to get over winter time, to hide from the wild animals, and so on and so forth, or the erupting volcano. And so it became a routine to watch out for the bad and for the good, for the danger and for the beneficial. Both has been, I think, kind of woven into a routine because the positive aspect is the one anyway that the consciousness yearns to experience in a repetitive nature, and the so-called negative or dangerous part wants to be avoided and can be avoided by a routine of watching out. No? That's how we all grew up and have been educated. Now, I have no doubt that those tendencies of living in a routine, I of course carried over to my spiritual endeavors and transformational quests and practices. And we do find quite a lot of passages in A Course in Miracles given by Jesus talking about routine, either directly or kind of talking around, but also making it very clear that we will need to look at it from both perspectives. From the one perspective where it has value and where there is, especially for the beginner's mind, um, a, a benefit going into a practice in a regular experience of contact with God. And on the other hand, needing to realize that a routine that is then set in stone and conceptually defended, and he calls it in the course, can be very dangerous, yeah, for the awakening process. So, what are your first perspectives, Erica and Cam? And then we can go into perspectives as it is presented in the course.
In the spiritual practicing aspect of it, being so relatively new to this routine has been a very powerful space to be able to step to every morning when I wake up, and to then have that throughout the day, so that I don't get distracted so easily initially. And so to hold that space right away every single day has allowed so much more space to be available for growing. And so that is, I guess, where I can start. It's been a very helpful.
Mhm.
So,
Erica?
yeah, this topic came up for me a bit because we homeschool the kids. And there's so much fear around every day. They need to do 2 hours of this, 30 minutes of this, and I saw, wow, this is not how I want to be setting up these kids. Like, feels awful. The kids are hating it. They're learning actually on their own a lot. yes, and sometimes when I really give it space, I wake up and it's clear, yeah, we're gonna take out the math book now. But it's totally different when I do it like that. And so that really started to show me, wow, where am I bringing in such a strong idea coming from fear, how it has to be, not even allowing what could be so glorious. So I don't even know what it is. And I'm just filling it constantly with an idea from the past or some, I don't know what it is. But it's like what you said, Devavan, it's that primal thing of a human to protect and make sure we don't, the animal doesn't get a, I don't know, but it's, I really had to let that go. We both did because we were sick in the house with this homeschooling stress. And I'm definitely doing it other places. But the beauty is with the kids, I can't really spend that much time on the spiritual practice routine. I can't sit and meditate 45 minutes. I'm lucky if I can hop on a class like this. That's amazing. And that's great. And I find that to be really useful. But I even noticed if I can't get on the class, there's a story of, oh, I missed out. Oh, I won't be in the light as much today because I didn't go to the class joining. Like I have an idea, oh, I won't be able to find it as much. That's what I have to share.
Great. Well, I see here two different, completely different perspectives, but that's exactly where we want to go with it, with this whole theme. The one perspective that you were elaborating on, Erica, is the aspect of routine in the world and routine within the dream of being part of the world. And Cam were actually pointing out the routine. And seeing a necessity in his own transformational experience with contact with God. Yeah. So I personally, when I looked at that last night, also there came two other terms into my mind besides routine, or which would makes it then clearer, or might even select the whole pressure out of what normally with routine is put together. And the one is discipline, and discipline, I can basically apply that concept and idea in both ways, in the worldly ways
Mm.
and in the spiritual way. And the other point is, which is probably also applicable on both levels, but maybe more on the worldly level, is flexibility. And if I live flexible, I can still be in a routine, but I allow that always necessary guidance of the Holy Spirit to show me that the form of the application can change, the form how to experience can change, and yet the goal should or is guaranteed. Because, if we're gonna, nobody can tell you anyway, except maybe there is a legislation about that in Europe that would be completely all fixed into law, how homeschooling in most of the countries is forbidden. And they have to go to school because there is also the setup. And if there are in certain countries exceptions to that, like in France, then you have to definitely comply with certain regulations. That means you have to guarantee that you give Caesar what is Caesar's and you give God what is God's. No? So you have to separate the two words. And that is actually good for us to look at, because at some point I need to be very clear that my contact with God, my expression of joy, of joining in oneness, doesn't have anything to do what I'm doing here and how that looks like, because my joy in God should actually at the end show up in any moment. And let's say even in the moment where everybody is, oh no, not again. and there's actually space that the joy of just being together and walking together should come forth and should be practiced. And so I see a value in both ways. In the one way, to open it up to the flexibility to be guided by the Holy Spirit. And, they would say, okay, we are in math now. Now let's go outside and we're going to have a ball game. But we will see how it's going to proceed. And most probably we will find ourselves again in the math book. No? So it could be going any way. And I think that is the challenge and the responsibility of the parent that wants to raise the kids in the spirit of the communication with the Holy Spirit. And at the end, you guys need to find that out, and not even listen to what I say or anybody says, no? Because how you communicate it and have it clear in your mind, that will communicate to the kids, and they will respond with either resistance or with, hey, great, I'm with you, no? So it could go in any way, but if you look basically at the value of the routine, I would always separate the meaning I've given to the word and that condition in which it is basically said, hey, here's a setup. We have the privilege to have homeschooling. And that's a privilege, that's a real privilege, actually, if you look at that. Oh my God, all this bullying in the schools that's going on, especially here in the States, no? And they don't need to face that, they can basically be educated in a completely different lovingly way. And if there is a requirement of being educated like pretty much anybody else, or come to a level of interest and intelligence, no? Of course, it will always reflect what the kids have in their mind, because as you know, most of the kids are very interested in certain subjects, and they can go so deep in and wanna. They are with kids already scientists, basically. I mean, Michael, for example, and we don't need to name anybody, but that's awesome. You can see that what interest is in that mind and wants to find out on all levels of what he could know about it. No? And so all kids have that naturally, I think. And if you, in that sense, if you bring that into a playful routine, that's very much welcomed and not resisted. No? And so that is the part on the worldly sector where um, we uh, we want to play the game and not go into transcendence and say, yeah, but we are so spiritual, we don't do that anymore. And we know that's not the answer either. Because we do it now in our mind. It's the think system. We are learning what they are learning in 1 year, in one day, or in 1 week. and and it doesn't need to be that either. It could be, if it is given. It doesn't exclude it, but I wouldn't start there. I would start in exactly there where the regulations are, or where I see the comparison and the level how it is dealt with in the world, and just see what privilege it is to have the kids home, and you can homeschool them and they can be homeschooled. No? And yeah, what do you say to that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's sort of how I was when I threw out all the meaning I was giving it and how to look at it. That's kind of how it started to come in. Like we're still doing some of this stuff, it seems. I didn't throw it all out, but there was a spaciousness where the kids suddenly were, when I kind of let it go, the kids were like, yeah, math. Michael even said, wow, I missed this. I really like this. I was like, so it didn't take much. It was just a little for me to give it to the Holy Spirit. And for I think a week, we actually didn't do anything because we were like, we got to just throw this out for a moment. And then it was clear, oh, get the books out, we're doing it. And so I think not coming to it with the fear, because then everybody seems to be really mad. Like even kids, some of the kids are crying.
Yeah.
I can't do this.
And I think most important is that you are enjoying it, that you find that it feels good, and if you're in resistance to it, then of course it communicates it that way. And that doesn't mean that not teachers in the schools are in resistance to their jobs, as with any jobs, no? So
Yeah,
that's a natural human transformational thing anyway, no?
yeah. But to go a little further now for me, I think many people meditate, for example. And the other night I hopped on a class and it turned out the woman just did a meditation and I did feel there was it was great. There was a lot of stillness. And I thought, oh, maybe things would speed up if I meditated more, but I don't know that that's going to be available to me. So then this idea comes in like, well, and at the same time, I actually trust. So I'm feeling like I can't even say it because I know it's not true. It's working fine for me how it is. Like it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I
But
think it's also important that we open our minds towards meditation takes any form. If I really look at that is uh, if you don't meditate in that form as it is prescribed, you meditate by playing with the kids, you meditate while cooking, you meditate while shopping, you meditate while doing house chores.
yeah,
It's the moment I allow a serenity and peace come into my experience, I am meditated and meditate. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So it
And
is we do advance also, of course, in those ideas which were fixed in certain forms. And yet, having said that, again, the form might be, especially in the beginning, how Cam was making a point, might be very important, to set up the day. I want to come in with a few passages in the course that were given me last night. And the one is at the very beginning, at the end of chapter 1, and he determines there that this is a course in mind training. So I can apply that, of course, also that any training, even the homeschooling, it's where it points towards is learning. It's about learning. And as a parent, you want to facilitate that your kids can learn as much as possible from your experience and whatever the content of teaching is. And then the next sentence is very clear and it starts with all learning. So there's the focus on the learning. All learning involves attention. Yeah, that's like, hey, are we
yeah,
gonna present and are gonna do that? Yeah, attention and study at some level, he says. Yeah, study attention and study at some level. Some of the later parts of the course rest too heavily on these earlier sections of the textbook, not the Miracles Principles, not to require their careful study. You will also need them for preparation. So that learning and study at a certain level is actually a preparation. There's more waiting for us. Yeah, that's what he says here. No? And
mhm,
without this, you may become, and amazing because you did mention it, you may become much too fearful of what is to come to make constructive use of it. However, as you study these earlier sections, you will begin to see some of the implications that will be amplified later on. So, that routine or allowing to look at certain uh, ideas that are even studied, like a lesson of the day is even studied. The moment I'm reading or listening to the lesson of the day, I'm studying the content of what this lesson speaks about. No? Like today is the salvation of the world depends on me. If I look at that idea and what is written in those 2 pages, it is actually a study or about salvation and about the connection to myself and my own salvation. And if I'm gonna go from there into an expression he gives us in the third review, which are those lessons 91 to 110, yeah, and he starts out in that introduction. We understand, of course, that it may be impossible for you to undertake what is suggested here as optimal each day and every hour of the day. Now you could apply that also, what you want to teach the kids on that day, and somehow you learn that it is understandable that it might be impossible for yourself and for them to undertake what is suggested here as optimal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So simply to get to an acceptance, I do not really know what is the optimum of the teaching content. And from there he goes, learning again will not be hampered. Yeah? So there is no negative influence on the learning level. When you miss a practice period, or when you don't teach it in that certain format at certain moment, because it is impossible at the appointed time, nor is it necessary that you make excessive efforts to be sure that you catch up in terms of numbers, that you have, okay, we missed out on this day, now we need to catch up. And people are doing that with the lessons in the course also. And he says here, that's not necessary. And here he brings in the word rituals. Rituals are not our aim and would defeat our goal. Yeah. But learning will be hampered when you skip a practice period that's now in, because you are unwilling to devote the time to it that you are asked to give. Yeah. So the moment the mind is in a defense and defends itself, what is offered and justifies the defense and gives energy to that defense, only then is the learning hampered. But otherwise, it will be basically showing up in a different format and be learned in another way. And if rituals would defeat our goal, we would say it's counterproductive. That's counterproductive. And we don't want to do that, neither on the worldly level nor on the spiritual level.
Thank you. Especially the first passage you read at the end of chapter 1. So I noticed in the lessons when Jesus stopped saying, okay, 15 minutes, or at the top of the hour, we're going to do 5 minutes. When that fell off, see, my mind tends to do, oh, there's no more instruction that we need to, oh, we can just be free about it. We don't have to do, and so I will say for years, I was doing like this. Oh, God just shows me. But I was full of crap in my mind, blaming everybody, not really applying this at all. I mean, I was conscious of miracles. I would say, oh, wow, synchronicity, da, da, da. But the discipline that you were talking about initially, the study and the attention, it's not to let the ego come in and make a big trick. Oh, we can just bypass, here we go. There is something about really taking the time, not the ritual of it, but I don't know how to talk about it, but it's shifting for me. There's now tangible gains, like the course speaks about, where literally my mind sees the situation newly. And that comes from that attention and that, willingness, but really focusing, not just trying to embody the ideal. Doesn't really necessarily work when the rubber hits the road.
Yeah, Cameron?
Yeah, I was just going to more so reinforce, and the lesson yesterday really supported a lot more of this attention and willingness to recognize all of the efforts in practicing and having that routine daily, no matter how it was. In the morning, Eric and I will read the lessons most of the times, and if not, then I'll glance at it for a moment when I have time. And ones that really land, I'll write on my hands. So when I'm working and I'm holding boards and nails, and I can see that, right? So it's there always. And so then it helps to reinforce it. But the point I was getting to is yesterday's lesson, where they were talking about not just saying the words, but really knowing it's there and feeling. And that,
To mean it. He said to mean
right,
it.
yes. And so then that has only become more clear in this routine of practicing every day. And with that, it has expanded. And that's a lot. It's, yeah, it's great. And what we were sharing with homeschool, it's felt in the space here. And it wasn't working before. There was way too much frustration, and it's met with resistance. And then there's more resistance. And then we come with resistance, and it just perpetuates itself. And there's
Yeah.
needed to be a complete drop for us to connect in that space again.
Yeah, and that is also an expression, even with kids, they respond very much so on your wordless and speechless expressions,
Yes.
like
Yeah,
really on the mind level.
yeah,
And that is the learning for us adults, so to speak, who are the educators, to be aware of that it is not about the concept and the words, and bringing it over with the right words. Okay, now we can make the check mark, and we did that. But really to see that the communication needs to flow and has to go beyond words. And that is exactly the same in the spiritual practice. And so at the end of this sequence of the lessons 181 to 200, there comes then this introduction. It's the sixth review, and it's quite elaborate expressed, because then there's for every lesson a 1 day reviewing that one lesson. And those who are with the Course in Miracles for some time, they know what the idea is that should be taken along into the day. I'm not a body, I'm free, for I'm still as God created me. And when he talks about that and how to bring that into the daily practice, I want to share those sentences that he adds there on. I love it really. We will attempt to get beyond all words. And we have to do that in any way, to attempt at least to go beyond all words and special forms, or practicing for this review or for any assignment, you could say. For we attempt to reach a quickened pace along a shorter path to the serenity and peace of God. And so, and you want to be at peace with the kids. It's just a reflection of the peace of God of us within ourselves. We merely close our eyes and then forget all that we thought we knew and understood. What an instruction, okay? Closing my eyes and determining, okay, I'm just gonna forget everything that I've learned and what I should learn, everything I thought that I know and I have understood and I can teach or I can share or I know how to do it right, just for a moment to forget. We know also later on, then he will speak about that forgetting this way of the conceptual mind is literally what forgiveness is. And from here it goes, for thus is freedom given us from all we did not know and failed to understand. Freedom. Yeah, freedom from the conceptual limitations and freedom from that self-judgment. Oh, I don't know that. I still need to learn that. I still need to experience that, and so on. This endless chewing it over. Ne? There are but one exception to the lack of structure. Permit no idle thought to go unchallenged. That is what you were talking about, Erica. To to no, to still stay in that alignment and not to drift off into into this kind of mind chatter that takes over then. But the instruction is not to let any idle, any meaningless thought to be unchallenged. If you notice one, deny its hold and hasten to assure your mind that this is not what it would have. Then gently let the thought which you denied be given up in sure and quick exchange for the idea as it is practiced. And that's the whole example that you give with the kids and homeschooling. Ne? And you might not be aware how you're doing it, but that's exactly how you're doing it. You're not letting the concept or the strictness of the concept take hold of your mind. You give allowance that you lose your mind literally from all you thought it is. Ne? And that, in the newness, of course, it becomes immediately attractive to the kids, whatever you offer.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
So again, here we see it's the same. It's the same on the worldly level as on the spiritual level. It's the same instruction. And at the end, we have to apply it with our worldly situations, with
Yeah.
our clients, with our work situations, with our neighbors, and of course, with our family and kids and relationships. And there it shows if we are flexible, I come again in with the word flexible, or I'm gonna go along like this and say it has to be like this. Ne? And that will
Yeah.
always create a conflict or create resistance, Or then those are the situations when the so-called nice brothers, loving brothers, starting to challenge us. Ne? Then when I see that, then I know, okay, maybe I'm just holding on to an idea, and I actually invited to look at that and let that go. Ne? Yeah. And then I have a nice passage also from lesson 95, which we already remember. I'm one self united with my creator. And here he goes also in the part where he describes the practice of the lesson into this generalization and says, structure is necessary for you at this time,
Mhm.
planned to include frequent reminders of your goal and regular attempts to reach it. That's what you said, Cam. You have it written on your hand. That's a frequent reminder, a regular attempt to remember. Ne? So especially those who start out with the lessons, the workbook, and at some point wanna maybe lay aside the practice part and the book because either they think I got it and it's all clear to me, or they go into straight resistance and would rather choose some other form. So they are asked actually to use structure and not to resist structure. No? So here's the counterpart of it. He continues saying regularity in terms of time is not the ideal requirement for the most beneficial form of practice in salvation. So here that will be another description of routine, to have it completely regular on the minute, or you set your time every hour and exactly when The second is on the time, that's the time I need to repeat. I know brothers who did that and they had benefit even from that, but they needed also to learn not to make a routine out of that. Né? It is advantageous, however, for those whose motivation is inconsistent. So that where on that point we can help each other, né? Because that can be reflected. If the practice or how to live it has already taken on a consistency or is still inconsistent, né? And who remain heavily defended against learning. So that's the other point we were already touching to. No? That can also be pointed out in the reflection of our coming together, you know. And even if we take it for ourselves and see what I perceive, of course, I need to convert for myself. But what I perceive in that moment is resistance to learn that. No? And it is basically rejected. No? So that's not the way where I will agree with. Then I would suggest to try it with some structure, with some routine, and see what that does. The master teacher would always say, do the first 60 lessons and then make a decision if you want to continue with this course or how you feel and how you see how it changed your way of relating and how you of seeing everything. So there was a prescription basically of a structure and a routine for a certain time period to give it a chance, we would say. Yeah.
Yeah. I would, something else just came to me. So sometimes what will happen is I'll feel sort of an instruction or something that seems to involve something I'm doing, like and I will jump over that with, no, but that's not how it works. You know, I'm saying in my mind, no, because we did it before, and it's the this is again kind of where the routine becomes an issue and becomes an idol, where then I'm not really listening. I'm just saying, well, last Wednesday we did it like this and it was so great. So sorry, God, you're wrong. That's not what's happening. And I actually think I do this a lot, because sometimes what will come in is doesn't make a lot of sense. You know, do you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know how to articulate this well, but even something, oh, share this or play this song now, and it's no, nobody likes that song. No, don't say that to them. They don't like it. It's constant. That's just more bringing the past, but it also has something to do with the routine, meaning my idea of how it goes and how it works, and it's completely blocking the direct communication and perhaps something miraculous to occur. Do you know what I'm saying?
What it blocks is, and that's where the mistake is, where the connection is, you're connecting the idea of structure and routine with self-judgment. It's self-judgment which you allow to interpose
Yeah,
your guidance and your
yeah,
communication with him.
yeah,
If you can see that in that moment, here's my self-judgment, because with that self-judgment, you go literally into, you know, the routine and the structure is not the problem. The problem is, what am I doing in that process of thinking about it? Because
yeah,
at that moment you go into hell in your mind, you know,
yeah,
and that's the
yeah,
problem. And that is what you feel and feel that's not right. No?
yeah,
And then of course you cannot find any value anymore in the routine either, because you already judged your what comes into your mind intuitively, or however you feel you are guided, you already judged it, né? Which
yeah,
is you are already living then on the level of self-condemnation, né? And of
yeah,
course that doesn't communicate or does make you happy.
yeah. Thank you. Even like the kids will do it. The kids will be in the back seat of the car and say something, Mom, this, and I, no. And later I learned, oh, they were completely right. These kids were telling me, Mom, you gotta do this. Like, and I've been with brothers who are so miracle minded. It's like, wow, stuff is showing up out of nowhere that's not making sense, but it's wow, it's revealed like, oh my, I never could have imagined how this would go. And here it's coming through newly, absolutely in an amazing fashion that I couldn't fathom. But you're right, it is self-judgment. But I don't know that I always catch it until later. I have to see, I have to like, I perceive that there was a mistake, or oh wow, we missed that. I missed that. I blocked that. And then
Yeah,
I
but the
see,
moment you know it, you know, that judgment might sink in, then you can already look for where's my judgment about it in the situation, and then you catch it instantly. No? If I know what I'm looking for, I will find it instantly without delay. No? If I
yeah,
don't know what I'm looking for, it might take some time, you know.
yeah,
But now you know what you're looking for. So you will be surprised how fast you will find, oh, here it is. Hi, judgment. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Do I have any use of that? I think I'm gonna say goodbye. And that makes then a difference. No?
yeah.
I mean, we were having last night, 4th of July, Independence Day here in the US, no? And we all were. I was also out in the community celebrating just with my by myself, and but I was mingling with people, kind of where I mean there were like here in the Dells thousands of people coming. You know, as you know, it's a tourist place, and I was on a big parking lot of this aquatic center and roller coasters they have and all kinds of stuff. And behind that was the firework. And I was kind of watching the people around and how they were doing, you know. Most of them, they were sitting on on their cars and on their trucks and had some drink and had their cell phones too, and were communicating with each other. And I watched the kids also, no? How happy it made them, you know. At the end, I had the feeling, oh my God, everyone here, everybody in the world is really looking for this form of celebrating that is kind of opening the mind, is different, is making the heart feel joyful. And, you know, and the kids were just completely in their energy and like bundles of fire and energy. And it was like that part of just watching them was for me even more impressive than the firework itself. No?
Yeah,
And that's where we notice also that what joy it brings when we get out of the routine, né? Because then it becomes something that isn't repeating, that isn't always available. It's like you cook, Cam. If you cook something that you don't cook all the time, you know, it's out of the routine, you know, and then it's immediately an immense joy expressed and experienced. Né? That is part of the human consciousness. No? The same our nature experiences. If we discover something that we don't see, perceive, or experience all the time, we are blown away. I'm blown away. It's like I only see, oh my God, what beauty! You know, I can't hold it together. It's so amazing. No? And that is our mind, you know, that is our mind when we don't fix it into this. Uh, and we have to learn that on the spiritual level also, of course. No? It is just there. Okay, in the beginning, I need that structure, I need that routine. But then I will practice and give everything to get out of that routine and let it reveal in the spontaneous nature of me being just wherever I am and whatever comes in my mind, exactly how it presents itself. That's why, uh, uh, I mean, who has really interest to listen to teachers who always use the same words? I know a few teachers, they will never teach anything that they have like 5 topics and they teach it year in, year out, and always the same. And I never heard them teach anything else, you know? It's like, Okay, I'm gonna have a nap in the meanwhile. it's it's boring, no? And if we let it flow and let it reveal spontaneously, we are attentive, we are present, we love to participate, we love to share, we love to join in what is beyond, and there's a light in it, no? And he mentions, I want to bring one more part in of the Course in Miracles, which is in the teacher's manual in the section how should the teacher of God spend his day, no? And in that second paragraph, he says, there are some general rules which do apply, although each one must use them as best he can in his own way. See, again, he directs us. We need to find that for ourselves, you know. It's not a doctrine. That's what he says here. No? It's just a suggestion, but I have to find it for myself. No? Although each one must use them as best he can in his own way. Routines, as such, are dangerous because they easily become gods in their own right. Yeah, we make it an idol immediately. They become gods in their own right, threatening the very goals for which they were set up.
Yes.
Broadly speaking, then, it can be said that it is well to start the day right. You know, that was you saying, Ken, you know, you feel there is the value of having that moment of peace. That's what we are seeking in a moment of quietness, in a moment of asking for the love and peace and joy of God to just spend a moment with that. And further back, he says, perhaps the one generalization that can be made is this: as soon as possible after waking, take your quiet time. That's an instruction, you know, after we get up from bed to have a moment of quiet time. And even if it's just a few minutes, and if it is 15 minutes, half an hour, or a few hours, it's actually the same. Yeah. But it's that I need first the connection with the mind of God, with my whole mind, because the mind is anyway in that alignment. The same procedure should be followed at night. Perhaps your quiet time should be fairly early in the evening if it is not feasible for you to take it just before going to sleep. It is not wise to lie down for it. It is better to sit up in whatever position you prefer. And one more, there's one thought in particular that should be remembered throughout the day. It is a thought of pure joy, a thought of peace, a thought of limitless release. Limitless because all things are freed within it. That's in the sixth paragraph. One thought in particular to remember throughout the day, a thought of pure joy, a thought of peace, a thought of limitless release, limitless because all things are freed within that limitlessness.
So with that idea of holding that freedom, that space of freedom and limitlessness is the one thing where I have shifted in I would say the last couple of weeks is when there is chaos in the house and there's a lot of noise. That is now where I have stepped to first and then try to approach the situation. And it's recent that practice has been going on, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
That part of it is the hardest because it is demanding more than quiet. But yesterday it worked really well. I could hear the kids outside screaming at one another, and the energy started to elevate. And I opened the door and I just called out one of the names, and they were just like, and it took about 10 to 15 seconds, and then they got it. It was cool, you know? And so I was able to shut the door and go continue with what I needed to do. So, and it's in those moments of chaos where I'm really pushing that practice, and it's making a difference, because it brings, there's a couple words that came in earlier. There's this peaceful confidence that's come up from practicing that way, and it's able to be demonstrated. And that is what Eric and I have come to as the most important in teaching our kids, and in turn ourselves and our brothers and the world and more, right? So there's been a lot. Yeah, it's just good. It's good.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I have so much respect for you and all the parents who have to deal on that level with kids. You know, I see it in the restaurant too. A couple of kids start screaming, and I just think of the parents. How can they stand that all day long? and you know, like what you were expressing, Ken, was a certainty. You expressed a certainty. You know, there was a certainty communicated of uh, calling out one with the name, and that certainly communicated, and let them stop for a moment. No? Everything when we come from certainty uh, will communicate, no? Because at the end certainty is always of God. No?
Yeah.
And certainty comes, of course, in how do I accept it for myself? How do I find it in myself and accept it for myself? No? Whatever the expression is. No? I need to be in love with my own expression. No? That's the whole learning. If I find that and I stand to that, there's certainty. Yeah. It will communicate. What are your last words, Erica?
I don't know. Just happy.
Yeah.
Be happy.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a great topic, and we could, of course, keep on going with that. And there's so many examples to it. But I think we brought it to a kind of a line of seeing there's no wrong to it, but there's no right to it either. It really depends on how we are willing to use it for the purpose of experience, joy, love, and peace in ourselves, and to apply that not just for our spiritual practicing, but also in our communication with ourselves and within the dream. And that's it. And that's how we go home, because there is also then the experience, okay, forgiveness. That's forgiveness, when I come at peace with the figures and the pictures in my dream. Yes. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us, and pass on the good word. I have another song to join, and then I'm gonna go into my world. Thank you. Wonderful evening and day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Love you. Thank you.
Love you.